Frank Reich told to take a long walk off a short pier as he was whacked as coach of the Panthers. Carolina making yet another coaching change, but this one after 11 games. The Panthers an NFL worst 1-10. The person under siege would be the owner, David Tepper. Bought the team a couple years ago. David Tepper had seen enough. He couldn't take any more, so he pulled the plug, and moving on to his third full-time head coach in 4 seasons at the helm in the state of North Carolina. So let us discuss. There's nothing that gets bigger ratings than talking Carolina Panther football, and I'm here for all the ratings. I am here for all the ratings. So the question, did Frank Reich get a raw deal from Carolina? Did he get the old screw job, Frank Reich? So I'm going to shake my head no on this. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I don't get where this narrative is that this is like the worst thing that's ever happened. I can't believe it. It's unfair. I don't feel that way. I've got the poet laureate, whistleblower, and orthodoxy. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to provide a nice compensation package, which is what Frank Reich is going to get, something we'd all like to have when you lose a job and you get that giant cartoon-sized check. And it's just, it doesn't bounce. It doesn't bounce. You get all that money. Boy, is that a wonderful thing. So I've said in professional sports and college sports, big-time college sports, you can absolutely goof on people that lose their job because it's not real world. It's not real world. Anyway, so answering the question, did Frank Reich get a raw deal from Carolina? The answer is no. And number one. Yes. Reading the sob stories, and I call them sob stories, from the NFL media. It's not fair. It's so terrible. This is a respected coach of the NFL. You can't do Frank Reich dirty like that. What's wrong with you? And I'm like, okay. So this is now a Greek tragedy. That this is a sob story here. Very confusing to me. I don't get it. By every, and I mean every, objective measurement, this guy's a jabroni. He's bad at his job. He's a Mama Luke, Frank Reich, as a head coach. Didn't succeed in Indianapolis. Didn't succeed in Carolina. But he didn't have enough time. Okay. If you're on a boat out in the ocean and there's water coming into the boat, do you say, why don't we wait a little bit? You know, it's probably not that bad. Or do you think maybe we should get out of the boat? He's the boat that's got a hole in it. He is. They don't block. They don't tackle. The quarterback looks like he should be selling insurance somewhere, and he was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. The offense blows. The defense sucks. Special teams is irrelevant. What else is there? Seriously, it's not like they're getting better. So you got the money. You own the team. You want to get rid of the guy. What's to stop you from getting rid of the guy? Any way you slice it, the Carolina Panthers are bad to the bone. And that's why they're doing this. And as the poet laureate of the National Football League taught me in my youth, the great Jerry Glanville, the now infamous phrase, the NFL stands not for long. And in this case, this ain't college, as Jerry said. It's not your homecoming, none of that. It's the NFL, not for long, especially when you coach teams like the way Frank Reich has coached teams. Bad. All right, now, page 2 here. Is there more to the story? Now, this is where it gets good. Nice and gooey. It gets nice and gooey good. Because buckle up. Buckle up here. So I sent out some feelers around NFL circles, people that I know, and there's an interesting story bouncing around as to why this happened the way it happened in Carolina. And I'm just going to share with you what I've heard. It's people tell me things. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. I believe it. So let me set this up. So the owner, David Tepper, is a hedge fund guy. He's a hedge fund aristocrat. He's a robber baron. And, you're a hedge fund guy. You're cold-blooded, right? You're only worried about the bottom line. You lay off people. It's all about balancing the books and making the people money in the hedge fund, right? That's what it's all about. So you don't really care about the human beings involved in that. And so he acted like a guy that doesn't care about human beings. He got rid of a coach before he even finished his first season, David Tepper. But the theory is this. He was so mortified, right? So mortified by losing to the Titans. And the media, he didn't even hide it. He did not even hide this from the media. David Tepper, the owner of the Carolina football team, was shouting the F word as he stormed out of the losing locker room following the Tennessee-Carolina game. He was spitting fire. And so that was part of the story, but that doesn't tell you the whole story, as the late, great Paul Harvey would say. You're about to hear the rest of the story, right? The rest of the story. So the popular opinion is that David Tepper is a lunatic. He's a madman. He's deranged. Just another guy that made a ton of money, didn't really earn it, hedge fund guy, and here he is running amok in the NFL. Blah, 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 blah. That's the positive, or I shouldn't positive, that's the popular story that's going around. But there is an alternative reality, which I am digging my claws in more and more as I think about how all of this went down. So, and we're going to go there. We're going to go deep state, conspiracy, we're going there. Is it true? Is it true in an alternative universe that the reason this move was made is because the Carolina Panthers' former head coach, Frank Reich, was possibly terminated because of his mouth? Right? Is it true that Frank Reich was let go because of what he had been saying in addition to his coaching, that the final blow, the thing that pushed the needle into the fire category, was the mouth of Frank Reich? So to get into the weeds on this a little bit, this is the deep state conspiracy. That Frank Reich is buddy-buddy. He's been around the NFL game forever. Every old crotchety sports writer, every old washed-up NFL media person knows Frank Reich. Played at Maryland, was a player in the NFL for a number of years, has been an assistant coach bouncing around the NFL. And so the theory is that Frank Reich had been leaking stories to the buddies of his in the media that, hey, this guy Bryce Young, I knew the kid couldn't play. I didn't want to draft him. David Tepper wanted to draft him. I knew that C.J. Stroud was going to be good. And if it was up to me, C.J. Stroud would not be at Houston. He'd be in North Carolina. And he'd be my quarterback, and we'd have a great record. But if it wasn't for that meddling owner, if it wasn't for David Tepper, and that is what led ultimately, that and the fact Carolina's horrific, but if Frank Reich had just kept his mouth shut, he'd still be coaching the Carolina Panthers. That it's whistleblower 101. That Frank Reich went out, and the theory is he talked to his buddies in the media, made him look good, made the owner look like a country bumpkin. And I don't know a lot of rich people, but the rich people I know don't like to be made a fool. They don't like to be made a fool. And so the fact that this got out and it's been repeated in the echo chamber over and over again, you put it all together, you're like, okay. As the old slogan goes from past wars, loose lips sink ships. Or in this case, they get you fired from your head coaching job. Not that that's the worst thing in the world, because Frank Reich has a nice severance package and he's good to go. All right, final part of this. So a surprising name has emerged in the gossip mill as a potential suitor for the headhunters trying to find a coach for the Carolina Panthers. Current Fox Sports commentator and former Carolina Panthers star tight end Greg Olson. Yeah, Greg Olson's name has popped up behind a paywall on The Athletic. They floated Greg Olson's name. The Fox broadcaster is said to want the head coaching job with the Carolina Panthers. Should the Panthers want him? And I'm going to vote thumbs up on this. Yes. Now, that is not because I believe Greg Olson would be a good head coach. Not at all. I think he'd be terrible. It's not that. But I love the story. I'm all about the story. We saw this last year in the NFL. For selfish reasons, Carolina hiring Greg Olson would be tremendous, and it would be the Daily Double. The Daily Double. Let me explain why. Not only does it provide great talk radio to watch this guy who has never been a head coach at the professional level, never been an assistant coach at the professional level, never been a college football head coach, never been a college football assistant coach, never been a high school head coach or an assistant coach at high school. His experience is Pop Warner football. Be awesome. Might be awesome. Hire a Pop Warner coach to coach the Carolina Panthers. Be just great. I'd rather see that than some hotshot offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson of the Lions, or some guy named Mike McDonald of the Ravens, the defensive coordinator there, have been mentioned for these head coaching jobs in this next cycle of head coaching jobs. But hey, why not? Hey, and this would eventually lead to overnight talk show hosts getting coordinator jobs. And I would be willing to be the play caller for the Carolina football team. I know I would fail, but I'd make a lot of money, and I'd get a nice severance package, and that would be a wonderful mitzvah. Right? But the reason it's the Daily Double is let's assume the position. Let's assume the position that Tom Brady does actually end up doing games on Fox. Rather than have Greg Olson demoted or have a three-man booth, Olson goes to the Carolina Panthers, gets a 5 or 6 year contract, coaches for 1 or 2 years, gets paid a ton of money to leave the Carolina Panthers because he fails, but then Tom Brady slides in. He does the Collinsworth slide and gets the job at Fox. So you're good to go on that.